Knights at the Round Table, a round table discussion on speculative fiction books and film. Hi everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Knights at the Round Table. Today we are discussing the urban fantasy, rural fantasy book, The Owl Service by Alan Garner. I am sitting at the table with Karin.
Hello.
And I'm going to start with general impressions of the book. Karin?
I was pretty much enchanted by it from the beginning, which was excellent. I really enjoyed the beginning and the middle part, and I didn't really feel like the ending satisfied me. And so it's sort of, my general impression is it's going to be the book that puzzles and frustrates me for the rest of my natural life.
That is a very good first impression, because same. I am a sucker for anything that draws on Welsh mythology, and the mention of Blodeuwydd and the Mabinogion made me a very, very happy girl. But I finished the book and went, the fuck did I just read? What happened?
Yeah.
I feel like there was a much thicker book in there.
Exactly.
That didn't quite make it to the page.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to your sister about it the other day. I'm like, am I the only one who feels like that this book is not finished? I'm so confused by it.
Like there's an unfinished chapter somewhere that on Alan Garner's death is going to be discovered, and
there's a whole bunch of filling in that needed to happen.
Yeah.
It sort of read like somebody who automatically assumed that you knew everything that they were thinking and everything that they have researched up until this point.
Almost like a dream.
Kind of, yeah. It had that sort of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it read like sort of like vignettes. Like if they were to make this into a movie, I imagine fade to black happening an awful lot in this movie.
Apparently they did make it into a movie.
I saw
at some point.
Yeah, or a TV show or something like that. Yeah. I saw, when I was searching for this book to rent, I saw it come up as like video clips and stuff like that on the interwebs, and I went, oh, that's interesting. But yeah, this book, beautiful.
Yeah.
So confusing.
I have only met one other person who's read it, and their impression, what they said to me was, yeah, that book fucked me up. So I think we're not alone in this in this general feeling.
I can see why, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of filling in that needed to be done.
And in terms of the characters, it sort of felt like they jumped from being in one place in regards to, they'll be having a very civil conversation and everything will be going fine, and then the next chapter, they're at each other's throats, and sometimes that made sense, and it was just sometimes it worked, and sometimes it felt like, again, there was something missing.
Yeah, there was yes. Yeah, like the whole love story between, Alison, is that
Alison, yeah.
Alison and Gwyn was really very sweet-ish, sort of. And there were flashes of brilliance, like when Alison was looking down at the water tank and she saw her reflection.
Yeah.
And Gwyn was sitting at the water tank and it looked like he had reached out to touch her hair, and I'm like, oh, that's really beautiful and striking. But then, like, weird things would happen, like she suddenly has this ability to throw shredded books at him. And then he runs away, but then he comes back and she apologizes for it, and he's like, well, there's nothing that could have been done. I'm like, but wait, hang on, wait, whoa, what?
Just doesn't quite make sense.
It doesn't make sense. Well, there was nothing for it. I'm like, she just threw books at you with her mind.
Do you not want to maybe discuss this? Yeah.
What?
It was one of those things where what the characters knew and what the reader knew, I liked how that didn't always match up, that sometimes we'd be left in the dark and sometimes we'd almost know it was coming and they'd be still blundering towards it, and sometimes it came together really well, and then there were moments like that where it was sort of, we're missing something and it's not adding to it, and other times it helped to build the tension, and I think that's my favourite part about this book, is the tension is great. There's just this pent up feeling of things are coming out in bits and pieces, but it's all...
Shit's about to go down!
Yeah, there's this storm brewing and...
Yeah, it really does that storm brewing build-up thing really beautifully. Yeah. But then the storm is weird.
Very weird.
And how you get rid of the storm is weird.
And Roger, who I really did not like...
ends up being the hero.
Yeah.
Because reasons... What was Gwyn doing that whole time,
by the way?
Was he just... Like, the old Hugh was curled up into a corner, whining about how it's all gonna happen again, and Gwyn is just standing there, I guess? Question mark?
Which is really a shame, because we get into his head probably more than any other character.
Yeah, and until the end.
Yeah.
And you just don't know what is going on.
It's like... he's there, but we have no sense of him.
Yeah.
And that, I think, was the biggest disappointment for me, that I'd really come to understand him and to appreciate his point of view, and then we get nothing from him at the end.
Yeah, literally nothing.
Yeah.
Just a, nope, not gonna.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess. One of the things I really did love about this book, though, which I have to think about, it relates to how well I can associate with Gwyn, because he's trapped between two worlds, right? This book was written in a world where Welsh was considered a language unworthy of being spoken, even by Welshmen. And there was sort of a big push to Englishify everything.
Right.
And so you get Gwyn's mother, Nancy, who rouses at him for speaking Welsh to Hugh, because that's the language of labourers, it's beneath you.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's something that actually did happen. And so the Welsh language is making a slow comeback, but I mean, not too many people even in Wales speak Welsh anymore, and it's really upsetting to me.
Yeah.
And so reading it in this book, I appreciated that they touched on it.
That was something I felt that was done well. The fact that the fantasy and the reality really gel, because you get what I was sort of looking for when I was skimming through the book this morning was who's actually telling the story, who's telling the mythological parts of it, and it's, again, it all sort of comes out in bits and pieces, and it's like bits from Hugh and bits from, I guess Gwyn tells a bit of it at one point.
Gwyn knows the valley, even though he wasn't raised there. He was raised up in Aberystwyth.
Yeah. And then there's this sort of blankness from the English characters.
Who know nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you get different reactions from it, like Roger's so contemptuous and so down on these crazy taffs, and he's incredibly dismissive, and Alison's sort of nostalgic and like almost thinking of it as quaint and charming, hence the little shell owl souvenir thing.
Made in England, by the way. That made me laugh so hard.
That was classic.
Greetings from the land of song. Made in England.
Yeah.
Okay.
Says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, really.
So...
Yeah. No, I really liked that. I think they could have discussed it more, honestly, in this book. It really could have been more of a sort of lesson in that kind of thing.
But in it, it's always present.
It's always present, and I enjoy that.
Yeah.
Even like when Roger is making fun of Gwyn's getting the elocution recordings, right? Because he doesn't want to speak like a taff anymore.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to speak like a Welshman. He'll get more opportunity in the UK if he can speak like a proper Englishman, so that's what he's going to try and learn to do. Which made me sad, because I love the Welsh accent.
Yeah. But for him it's...
Yeah, and it's the reality of the situation, right?
Yeah.
Outside of Wales, you probably wouldn't be hired because you're Welsh.
And again, you get the
English people.
That reaction of Alison being sorry for him, but not really taking into account the full situation. And Roger just using it as ammunition.
Yeah, really. As a tool for mockery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he really was the worst.
Wasn't he? How did he end up being the hero of the story? Like, that came out of nowhere.
Yeah. It just seemed like a complete turnaround for his character.
Yeah.
And I didn't buy it.
No, neither did I. Honestly, also because with the talk of, like, Gwyn being sort of the sole successor of the Lord of the Land, basically, I really wanted to see him step up into that role and then acknowledge his Welshness and his position as part of like the leadership of this valley community. It would have been so much more satisfying, other than him just standing there staring at the girl he's apparently in love with slowly turn into a cursed owl woman, and just being like, nah, not gonna do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I get the hurt bit. I get that he was really hurt. But even still, I would love to have seen him step up into something more. It was missing. He was missing.
And that's what perplexes me more than anything, is that I feel like I should appreciate the fact that it didn't go where it was sort of set up to be going, but I don't think it really worked.
It didn't work. It wasn't satisfying in the slightest.
Yeah, I didn't like where it went instead.
Yeah.
And Alison as well, I feel like we could have seen more from her.
Yeah, that's very typical though of like early young adult stuff.
Yeah.
The Susan complex, right?
Yeah.
Where the girls are there and they're kind of sort of just there, and their job is to be there.
But if anyone had the potential to change as a character, because she already had more of an open mind.
Yeah, that's right. She was much more open-minded than the other English people around her.
Yeah, and there was potential, I felt, and I guess it's that unfulfilled potential that disappoints me.
Unfulfilled potential is annoying. It doesn't matter whether it's potential to be good or potential to be bad. If nothing's done with it, I find it really aggravating to read.
And for a book about potential, basically, it's all this energy that's trapped in these different forms, and it's
in
coming out of these
people in
exciting
this valley.
ways. Yeah. For that setup, there's a lot more that could have come out of it.
Yeah, if that's my whole take from this book, is there's a lot more that should have been done with this.
I like the idea that there's the complete copy that is locked away somewhere in Alan Garner's house.
Yeah. This book, well, speaking of completely wasted potential, this book had potential, and it was just confusing.
Yeah.
Oh, I do want to point out though, so having studied the Mabinogion in undergrad, I did a comparative analysis of female characters from each of the stories.
Oh, yeah.
And Blodaiwith was one of the characters that I studied, and I love Hugh to pieces for saying, nobody asked her.
Yes.
Right? They just made her for this lord, and nobody asked her if she wanted him. She was just expected to.
That was such an important line.
Such an important line! And then nothing was done with it. But it was so important, and I really appreciate that it was said.
That there's that sympathy for her, because
she was
she
literally...
had no choice.
Yeah. Manawydan and Gwydion? I can't remember how it's spelt. Made her for Gwydion's nephew, Llai, and then that was it. She was made for him, they were married, and then a very handsome lord came by after hunting, and she was like, "Ooh, I like you so much better, Thor."
It's sort of course that was always going to happen.
Yeah, right? I'm really glad they mentioned it.
Oh yeah, I wanted to ask, did you read the copy that had the Susan Cooper introduction?
Oh, I
prologue?
did not.
I actually... It's not often that I think the prologue adds anything to a book, but in this case I really enjoyed reading it, and it didn't make the book more satisfying because the problems are still there, but it certainly added something to it.
Wait, so she wrote a prologue or an introduction?
Good question, I'll have to check.
Okay.
One of the two.
Send it my way then.
Will do.
Yeah, because Susan Cooper was one of my favourite childhood writers.
Oh, okay.
Wow, I say that. Oversea Under Stone was my favourite childhood book. The rest of the series was terribly disappointing, but that particular book was brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You only need to have one, like, amazing book to...
Yeah.
for them to be a favourite childhood writer. I get that.
Yeah. No, I didn't. Oh, okay, I'll hunt that down then.
Yeah.
Or if you
I can lend you my copy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just to read the introduction. I will say, in working in its favour, and mostly because it is a young adult book, it is a very quick read.
That's true.
I read it in under an hour, so there's that.
I think one of the things I loved about it was how much you can see of the valley in your mind's eye when you read it without...
the landscapes were beautiful without being Tolkien-esque.
There aren't even... Yeah, there aren't long descriptions. There's, like, not even a very specific description of what everything looked like, but
you see
it was all just coming together, you know?
Yeah.
You read it and you're like, okay, the house is there, the river's there, that's the stone.
Yeah, the Raven Stone, and then there's the Gronus Stone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was...
Yeah, that's true.
That was
you
beautifully
really
done.
do picture it.
Yeah.
And it helps also if you've seen any photographs of anywhere in Wales ever.
That is true.
Yeah, the landscape was very vivid without it being ridiculously overly described.
Come to that, and I've just been picturing where I stayed in Wales and Snowdonia, so it might be a subjective thing.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I was very jealous, by the way. Also, thank you for the whiskey. It's now my favourite.
Oh, you're welcome. You'll have to go hunt it down where it came from.
Yeah, it came from the Penderyn Distillery in South Wales. I intend on going.
Make a pilgrimage.
I will! Yeah. I will! I follow them on Twitter now and they just keep coming up with all the awards they're winning, and then I'm like, oh, but it's such good whiskey though.
The Penderyn pilgrimage.
Make it happen, internet.
Yeah. Oh my.
Yeah.
But where were we?
Yeah,
somewhere in the book.
We were somewhere in the book.
Yes.
I just had an epiphany in the break about why it was called the Owl Service, because I was so confused. When I first picked up the book, I'm like, the Owl Service. Oh, so like messengers, right? Oh, I do have a point. Oh, yeah, so like messengers, it's going to be sort of a whimsical retelling of, or whimsical continuation of Bledaiwith's story. Was not whimsical. In fact, there's some descriptions in there that are downright terrifying, like paranormal kind of things, like the wall cracking and coming away, and then when the wall comes away, you just see a pair of eyes staring at you. I mean, that is a horrific image.
That will watch you in your dreams.
Yeah, right.
Sorry.
Yeah, and the paper owls that keep going missing, and then that are flying around by themselves, and yeah, lots of like weird, wonderfully paranormal, scary things in this book that I really enjoyed. It added to that really tense atmosphere.
Yeah. That sound of someone walking around, and the way it goes from the completely innocent, where there's the line about, oh, what were you doing in that room? And she wasn't in that room. No one was in that room. The room was locked. Yeah, the room was locked and hasn't been open for years. Yeah. I mean, that's the sort of thing. That's the sort of story that I tell on the Haunted Walk, and it always gets a reaction. So. It's great tension building, it's great... Yeah, it was beautifully done. Going from everything's fine to suddenly, oh no, everything is not fine, and actually it's really freaky. Yeah, that's it. And because it was a young adult book, I was expecting a little more whimsy, and instead I got like Paranormal Activity, Mabinogion edition. Like it was pretty freaky, and I enjoyed that very much about the book. Yeah. That cache of objects that appears right at the end in the... behind the waterfall. The black hiding. The black hiding. It was introduced late in the game, but it did, as far as like moments that brought things together rather than just sort of raising more questions, that was really good, I thought. It was really good. I like how they had like the bits of the missing part of the bike that killed what's-her-face's fiance? Beloved. Bertie. Yeah. Poor cousin Bertie. Poor Quick. Yeah, that was hidden away in there. Sort of like the flint spearhead. Oh yeah. That made me smile because in my academic pursuits, obviously when you do research on the Mabinogion, they're written as if they were medieval texts because that's when they were written down, but they're actually from much, much older oral histories. So the fact that the spearhead was made of flint instead of iron or steel made me happy because it spoke a little bit to the antiquity of these stories, which made me smile very much. Yeah. Made me happy. Attention to detail right there. Yeah. And it might not even have been in the academia at that time. Rather more in the oral history. That's so the stories I think were written down. The 13th century? That is usually the century I go with for medieval texts, so I'm reluctant to say yes. I can't remember. It's been years since I've studied it, but they were written down in the Middle Ages, but the stories, and so most academics believe that the characters that appear in them are euhemerized gods, which is, sort of corroborated a bit with the
with the prevalence of like Manawydan in the Blodeuwedd story. He's the Welsh god of the sea. Manawydan ap Llŷr. So, son of the god of the sea, whatever. He's a demigod. Llai Silverhand, and sort of all the priests that are doing things that are very druidic, rather than very priestly. So yeah, that mention of the flint spear being the one that killed Gronw made me very happy, because it was flint and not steel.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even notice that. That's
that was a long-winded way of saying my academic heart was happy.
Always a good thing.
Always a good thing, yeah. That was, yeah. Also, the appearance of the man who is either on horse or on motorbike.
Yeah.
In the photographs. Another thing that was sort of paranormal freaky about this was the appearance of that figure in the photographs. And depending on what zoom you used, either it looked like he was on a horse with the horse's head down, or he was on a motorbike. And you learn later that cousin Bertie was killed on a motorbike, sort of up there on the hill. Mm-hmm. But also, I think, if I remember rightly, Llai was on horseback when he threw the spear? He might not have been. I don't remember.
There's definitely a picture in the illustrations in the edition I have that has a man with a spear on a horse.
Oh, on a horse, yeah.
So I'm inclined to say yes.
I didn't have any illustrations in my edition. It was it was a little book. So yeah, that made me happy too.
And that's the whole continuity of the same story repeating itself.
Just repeating itself.
Every generation.
Yeah.
Honestly, the older generation in this book were, like, apart from Hugh, pretty useless.
Oh god, Nancy! I've never wanted to slap a woman more in my life.
Oh my god. So unhelpful.
But I think part of that was, in my mind at least, part of that was the shame that was wrapped around being Welsh in a very English-centric society. So that's she didn't want her son speaking Welsh. That was beneath him. And she didn't want really to come back to the valley at all because of all of the Welshness. And then her own connection with this very ancient Welsh story was probably also wrapped up in the same kind of shame that kept her smoking and bitter.
Yeah. And not telling her son helpful things. And,
yeah, right? Like, kind of like, hey, I was in Alison's position a generation ago. Maybe stick around and make it better?
Yeah. Like, there's this whole sense that there are people who could be fixing this, or who could at least be, like, preventing it from being as bad as last time, and they're choosing to do nothing. And the people in the village are just sort of casually talking about, oh yeah, it's happening again, and oh well, nothing we can do.
How bad could it have been last time? The village is still standing. And that's just it. You never really know what the end game is for Blodeuwedd coming back. She's just basically clawing her way out of this poor English girl.
Yeah.
Because somebody made her owls and she just wants to be flowers. Or something. So confusing, guys!
And again, no one's asking her what she wants.
Right, oh, that's also, yeah. What do you actually want? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was the end game? So what happens if she comes back? So what then? She goes on a manhunt? Is that... Because they were talking about her coming back and she wants to be flowers, but they made her owls, and so she was cruel and she is on the hunt. And you're just like, but what does that mean? I don't understand.
What is she going to do?
Yeah. Is it really that awful to have her come back? Well, maybe she'll meet somebody nice and fall in love. Like, Llai isn't around anymore. Like,
there we go.
Nobody's going to kill her lover, are they? Question mark.
This is a bit off topic, but I just realised how interesting it is to have Roger shooting through the stone. Not with a spear, but with a camera.
Oh, yeah!
I didn't catch that the first time, and I don't know if it was intentional, but I like it.
Yeah, that's also... The dynamic of the three is weird, because in the Mabinogion, it's Llai and his made-for-him wife, poor woman, Blodeuwedd, and then her lover, Gronw, who was a lord of the land. So does that make Roger the Llai figure? And Alison then his wife? Incestuously? And then Gronw the Lord of the Land? Because that's what it sounded to me like Gronu was the spiritual descendant of the Lord of the
Gwyn
Land.
was, yeah.
Gwyn was the spiritual descendant of Gronu, who was Lord of the Land.
Yeah. I think part of it was that in each generation it comes out a bit differently, where it's not, there isn't necessarily anything between Alicent and Roger. In a way, they've been forced together as much as the original figures, because they were.
I mean, Llay wasn't forced. Blodeuwedd was.
True. As much as Blodeuwedd was not able to avoid.
Yeah.
Having Llay in her life.
Yeah.
You know, their parents get married. Nothing Alicent can do about that.
Yeah, really.
So there's that sort of. It's a bit of a twist on it, I guess. But
see, that's a thing that was not explained and is confusing and should not be in this book. It really does need expanding. This book would be absolutely brilliant if it was maybe 800 pages longer.
It's not often you say that about a book that it needed to be longer, but
it definitely did. There's a lot of unexplained things in there. Even for somebody who knows the Mabinogion fairly well.
Yeah.
I was just so confused.
And there were some things, like there's some ways that I don't mind not knowing or having these gaps. Like I don't mind so much if their connection to Llay and Blodeuwedd and Gronu is a little unclear or is sort of twisted a bit. That doesn't bother me so much as not knowing why things end up the way they do.
Yeah, or what happens if they didn't or something. Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah, so that all right. There's a certain amount of like talking in riddles and all that helps it.
Oh, Hugh's talking in riddles was brilliant.
Yeah. And then there's that, you know, if there'd been something like the black hiding cache at the very end where it had just sort of come suddenly clear, that would have been great, and it would have worked with the photography imagery that goes through the book as well. That would have been really, really neat. Yeah, this book could have expanded on so many different things in so many different ways. Yes. Final thoughts and star rating? Ooh. I mean, star rating's difficult because I loved parts of it so much and was so confused and disappointed by other parts. So I'm going to go with a 3. And just final thoughts being that as far as imagery goes, this is one of the books that I strive to be like, and as far as resolutions go, it's a cautionary tale for me because I have the same trouble of like I love building the tension, and then there's that, well, I don't want to make it pay off in too obvious a way, so I guess that's helpful in a way. You should have had a payoff at all. Well, yes. So for me, it's 2.5 for exactly the same reason. Smack down the middle. The imagery was beautiful, and there were the paranormal elements was really freaky and sort of much more in line with my idea of what the Mabinogi, the stories of the Mabinogion were sort of gearing towards. Like, there's some pretty freaky paranormal stuff in there. And I enjoyed that touched on it. Like, it wasn't this really happy, silly young adult. It treated its readers more or less like they could understand that scary things are associated with like this whole mystical world that we don't know about because nobody's really studied it all that much. But that ending makes me angry. I don't like that Roger was the hero. There was no clue that he would be. He was a spiteful little brat from start to finish. And I am really disappointed in Gwyn. Mm-hmm. He should have been better. We expected more from you, Gwyn. Yeah, we expected more from you, Gwyn. Even though I did appreciate, like, the talking of Blodeuwedd's story and of Llay and Gwydion, who Hugh is supposed to be descendant of, I think. Yeah. But there was no mention of Manawydan, so even though he was involved in the story. Alright, done! I'm done spouting off about the Mabinogion. 2.5. Beautiful imagery. The resolution was so infuriating. Alright, you get to pick the next one. High privilege. Hope it's a good one. 10,000 Kingdoms by N.K.
Jemisin?
Jemisin?
Yes. I think this is the first in her trilogy. She's won a Hugo every book of this trilogy.
Wow.
I think this is the first one. I might be wrong, correct me down below if I am. But I am. I've been meaning to read her for so long, and I'm so excited that she's been pulled. Thank you.
Terrific.
Yeah. So 1,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin is the next book that we will be reading. If you have any thoughts about the OWL service down below, leave them. I lurk and will sometimes respond, depending on how I'm feeling, let's be honest. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks very much, guys. Bye!
You.
My brain, sponsored by generic coffee.